Good morning, good morning. Today's devotion is a little bit different from the norm. I'd like to share with you a word that I received from the Lord. So I've been asking God to speak to me louder. I want to hear clearly what He's saying. You know how Isaiah 30 verse 21 tells you that you shall hear this voice behind you saying, walk this way? Well, I haven't been hearing that, so I decided to ask God to speak to me in dreams. I figured that would be a safe spot because I don't normally dream. Well, last night I heard a bit of a conversation in my dream, and the conversation went like this: why aren't you fasting and praying like you used to? I was like, what? Do you know how many lives are affected because you're not fasting and praying? I woke up confused and I kept trying to figure out, did I hear this in a sermon? Is it something that I may have heard and kept it in my subconscious and know it was coming back? Or was God seriously challenging me about my prayer life? Which would be very true, and that my fasting and praying has not been what it used to be. But God is saying, do you know that the lack of fasting and praying in your life is not just about your life, that there are other lives that are affected? Why? Because oftentimes a Christian fasting and praying is directly connected to intercessory prayer. We don't just fast and pray for stuff that concerns us. We fast and pray for guidance. We fast and pray for healing. We fast and pray to overcome temptation. Or fasting and praying is about growing closer to God. In the book of Ezra chapter 8, verse 23, the Bible tells us, and these are the words that I'm reading from the scripture. He says, so we fasted and prayed, and God heard us and answered our prayer. Ezra and the team were planning to go back to Jerusalem to rebuild the wall, and he needed guidance. So this fasting and prayer was for guidance. And then we come to the fasting and prayer of Queen Esther. Esther's challenge was no ordinary challenge. She was being asked to step in the gap for an entire nation. But she was up against a culture that not too long ago had already shown her what happens to wives who are disobedient. Going into King Artaxerxes to ask this favor was going against the norm. And when Mordecai reminded her of her position, the Bible tells us in Esther chapter 4 that Esther sent back a message to Mordecai, and the message was, let me just find it so that I can read it for you. The message was, go and gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days or night, and I and my attendants will fast as you do. And when this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. So fasting and prayer was Esther's strategy. It was a strategy to get her into the king's presence. And certainly it was a strategy to ask the favor that she required. We see from the story of Esther something that sometimes we easily overlook. Esther, at the end of her fasting and prayer, didn't have to go into the king. Did you ever notice that? Look at Esther chapter 5 and verse 2. It says, when he, referring to Artaxerxes, saw Queen Esther standing in the court. She was standing in the outer court. When he saw her standing in the court, he was pleased with her and held out to her the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. God is saying to somebody today, there's something that you're worrying about. There's something that seems insurmountable. You have very, very current remembrance of how challenging this is. And so you're being fearful. But if you stop for a moment to fast and to pray, God goes ahead of you and he brings you into the space that you need to be. And there is something else about fasting and prayer from Esther's example that we often miss, and that is how calm she was with her request. Now imagine this. The issue at hand is the life of her nation. An edict had already gone out that they were going to be slaughtered and they were not going to be able to defend themselves. Now, one would think that the minute Esther got close to the king, she would make her request known. After all, this is an urgent situation. Notice what happened. 2 banquets on 2 different days passed before Esther made her request. You see, when we fast and pray, we have the confidence that comes from God. The Bible tells us, be anxious for nothing, but in everything with prayer and supplication and thanksgiving, let your requests be known before God, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your heart and mind. Too often we overlook the gift of the peace that comes from fasting and praying. You see, Esther was not anxious. She didn't need to rush her request on the king because she was not moving in her time. She was moving in God's perfect time. You don't need to be so anxious about what you're facing that you're tripping over your words and you're running to make your request. What you need is to slow down, spend time in fasting and praying so that God can hatch a plan that's going to be the absolute perfect plan. So I want you to hear the same question that God asked me. Why aren't you fasting and praying more? Do you know how many lives are affected by your fasting and praying? In Matthew chapter 17, verse 21, when the disciples could not cast out the demon out of the young boy that was brought to them, and they asked the Messiah, why could we not do what you just did so easily? Jesus' response to them was this kind goes out only through prayer and fasting. So let me ask you, is there a this kind in your life that you're dealing with? A this kind that just seems impossible to overcome? That no matter what you do, it doesn't seem to be passing? Well, the words of Jesus to his disciples are the same words to you this morning. This kind goes out only through prayer and fasting. Why aren't you praying and fasting more? Do you understand how many lives are affected by your prayer and fasting? Get ready to begin your prayer and fasting. Make it a habit. If it's even 1 day per week, half a day, commit to God some time for prayer and fasting. And remember to share this video with someone who's struggling with this kind. As someone who has an Artaxerxes that you're not sure how to approach them. God is saying to us, I've given you the gift of prayer and fasting. Use it. I pray that this devotional has blessed you. Don't forget to share with us your experience with fasting and prayer. And remember, do share the video. Have a blessed day.